Now on KGW News at noon, 2 more asylum seekers were arrested at a Portland immigration court. That's amid immigration raids underway nationwide. We have the latest on that. Plus, an early morning arson at a Portland historical church will cost thousands of dollars in repairs. What we know about the suspect. And later, President Donald Trump announcing a deal with China is done. The update on the tariff turmoil. Your News at noon starts right now. Thank you for joining us. I'm China Green. As immigration raids continue across the country, protests are spreading coast to coast. Here's a look at some of the protests going on in 4 major American cities: New York, Denver, Milwaukee, and San Francisco. Meantime, in Los Angeles, where we've seen the biggest showdown between protesters and law enforcement, the mayor declared a curfew for the city's downtown area. There was no violent protesting last night like we've seen the last couple of days, though multiple people were still arrested. More than 200 people overall have been arrested so far. Today, the city will expect to see the 700 Marines deployed to the region.
He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines. These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement. We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in L.A., not in California, not anywhere.
More National Guard troops are also expected to be on the ground today. Meantime, in Portland, protesters have set up an encampment at Portland's ICE office. This comes as 2 more asylum seekers were arrested yesterday at immigration court in Portland. Attorneys say that they were able to intervene, keeping the 2 men from being moved out of state. KGW's Alma McCarty has those details.
Portland is lucky to have a really amazing community of people who care about this.
As Portland demonstrators gather in plazas.
When immigrant workers are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back!
And camp outside the ICE facility, other supporters head downtown.
This community response has just been really overwhelming. So there have been volunteer lawyers and legal observers at the court every day.
Jordan Cunnings, the legal director for the Innovation Law Lab, explains that presence made a difference.
They were arrested immediately upon leaving the courtroom. We were then able to file the habeas petitions extremely quickly. And so we're lucky that the federal judge on the case intervened almost immediately and issued an order preventing their transfer out of the state of Oregon.
Cunnings explains the 2 men, one from Venezuela and the other from Ecuador, were complying with the legal process and showing up for their scheduled court hearings. According to court documents, ICE then moved to dismiss the asylum cases. The immigration court granted those requests.
Last week in Portland, we saw ICE beginning a really horrible, unlawful tactic of moving to terminate people's pending immigration proceedings in an attempt to then place them in a fast-track deportation process.
Attorneys have challenged those first 2 arrests of a 24-year-old transgender woman and of a 24-year-old man, both from Mexico. But not before the 2 were taken to an ICE processing center in Tacoma.
Particularly worried about their safety, and since they continue to be detained, OJM, as a transgender woman, is being held in solitary confinement for her own safety.
Cunnings says they'll continue monitoring and offering representation to those arrested at immigration court.
We hope ICE realizes this tactic is illegal and it's a waste of their time, because we're going to push back on every single detention.
Alma McCarty, KGW News.
Now let's head over to meteorologist Chris McGinnis for a look at weather now.
And we continue that cooling trend, right? We were in the mid-90s on Monday. Yesterday we got to 85, and right now at lunchtime we sit at 61 degrees at PDX. Freezing level has dropped a couple more 1,000 feet, so the air aloft is cooler. The air mass is generally cooler. By the way, check out the breeze as we go to the gorge. This is from the Dalles, Oregon's Veterans Home in the Dalles. We're at 74. Winds gusting right now to 32 miles an hour. They will remain gusty out of the west and northwest in the Gorge, East Gorge, and Columbia Basin throughout the day. But another day where I'm showing you the change from the day before. Another day with a minus sign in front of it. It's 10 degrees cooler right now at lunchtime than it was yesterday at this time. And across the state, generally cooler. Right now, we're sitting at 63. Wow, that is a popular number here. Pick out the spot that's not 63. Happy Valley, 58. 62 in Gresham will go down to the south right now. Kaiser, check it was 64. So lots of lower 60s across the region. Cloud cover's been stubborn today, but it is showing signs of breaking up, at least in the valley. At the coast, it'll probably be socked in for a little while longer. Temperature-wise, eventually getting into the lower to middle 70s today. So not even sniffing 80 degrees this afternoon. And not only will we not get to 80 today, I don't think we get to 80 in my 7-8 forecast. Not that it's bad after the heat, but we do have a dry, comfortable run of weather coming our way. We'll look at that coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Chris. Now to more local headlines this afternoon. A man has turned himself in after he set fire to the Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Portland's Brooklyn neighborhood. The fire broke out around 5 o'clock this morning and has since been extinguished. Police say 45-year-old Dominique Wall-Stevens was experiencing a mental health crisis at the time of the fire. He was booked into jail under one count of arson, and police estimate at least $3,000 in damage to the original church doors that were made around 1890. A wildfire in central Washington near Cle Elum has destroyed at least 2 buildings and triggered level 2 and 3 evacuations. The fire has burned about 55 acres. Firefighters say today is not progressing, but it's still threatening more than 80 structures. They also say the fire is human caused. And to an update, Tualatin Valley has lifted its burn ban that went into effect over the weekend. That means that you can resume backyard burning if you live there, and businesses can continue agricultural burning. They say the ban was put in place due to the higher than average weekend temperatures. And they remind people that while the burn ban has been lifted, safety remains a priority. Now to the search for the Washington man accused of murdering his 3 young daughters. Investigators believe that they are closing in on him after a possible sighting. Chelan County deputies credit a tip from a group of hikers who reported seeing a man hiking alone in the Enchantments Monday night. That's a mountainous area 15 miles south of Leavenworth. After the tip, helicopter team spotted a solo hiker, but said he ran away after seeing the chopper Monday night. Authorities sent emergency alert residents, urging them to lock their doors and remain highly vigilant. We heard from one man who rushed over to pick up his mother-in-law, who is scared to be alone in her cabin near Ingalls Creek.
It's just a perfect cliff right over the hill along the water. If it was a spot for a guy like Travis to be, it would be right there. Yeah. So, you know, when we heard that he was on the run and in this town, we're like, oh my gosh, I got to go get her. This is not good.
Authorities are asking anyone who's hiked the Enchantments area recently to contact their tip line if they have seen Travis Decker, especially if they notice anything suspicious. Now to an update on trade wars. The Trump administration announced today that the U.S. and China have reached a trade agreement after yesterday's talks. NBC's Chris Pallone has the details from Washington.
It appears President Trump has confirmed what trade negotiators from China and the United States announced last night. Both sides have agreed to a deal rolling back many of the punitive sanctions the countries put on each other in an escalating trade war over the past few months. President Trump posting on Truth Social this morning, "Our deal with China is done, subject to final approval with President Xi and me. We will provide to China what was agreed to, including Chinese students using our colleges and universities." He also said we are getting a total of 55% tariffs. China is getting 10%. Relationship is excellent. The deal comes after 2 days of negotiations in London. China and the U.S. essentially agreeing to return to the framework of a deal reached in Switzerland in May. That deal fell apart when China restricted shipments of magnets and rare earth minerals needed by U.S. manufacturers. The president said that issue has been resolved and the shipments will restart. President Trump and President Xi spoke by phone last week for 90 minutes, their first conversations since Mr. Trump returned to office in January. It's unclear whether this agreement will lead to a broader trade agreement between the two countries. Yesterday, a federal appeals court gave President Trump a win, ruling that many of the tariffs he's put on imported goods from foreign countries can remain in effect for now. In Washington, Chris Pallone, NBC News.
And we're following up on the local impact from President Donald Trump's tariffs. The Port of Portland told us that it's struggling over back and forth decisions and market uncertainty. The port says that saw a 20% drop in containers coming in last month compared to last year, but they hope the pause on Chinese tariffs would improve numbers this month. Local businesses who are importing goods are paying real price here. We caught up with the owner of Bambooza Vietnamese restaurant, who imports rice from Vietnam through the port. Last shipment added an extra $1,200 in tariffs, and the supplier put her next shipment on hold.
It seems the information is changing on a daily basis or sometimes hourly basis, and it's hard. Very sad and frustrated, and trying to figure it out, what is the end game?
The Trump administration maintains in the end tariffs will benefit local businesses. The Port of Portland says its biggest imports are furniture, tires, glass, and toys. Just into the newsroom, Brian Wilson, the singer-songwriter who created the Beach Boys, died at 82. The family announced the death on his official webpage, but did not provide further information. The Beach Boys were formed in 1961 in Hawthorne, California, and rank among the most popular groups of the rock era. He was the eldest and last surviving of the three musical brothers who created the rock band.